Hello and welcome back to the Undercut podcast. We are returning to preview the fifth Grand Prix of the year. Again, it feels weird that we're like almost halfway through May or over halfway through May and we're only at Grand Prix number 5. It's the Canadian Grand Prix. I'm your host, Jesse Billington, and joining me once again is none other than Mr. Thiemo Albers Daly. How are you?
Also weirded out by the fact that it's only the fifth Grand Prix of the season. It feels like the 80s, or what I imagine the 80s would feel like when they start the season in April, and so it makes sense that you would only be in the fifth Grand Prix by sort of May time. But aside from that, all good. It's going to be a busy weekend, as we were talking about before we hit record. You have not a quiet weekend as such. There's always motorsport going on if you know where to look for it, but then in the space of 2 or 3 days, you've got F1, Indycar, Weenie 500, importantly, NASCAR, F2, F1 Academy, Australia Supercars, and that's just sort of the main headlines. I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff going on as well. So I don't know how we're going to be able to fit it all in. We may need a time turner or two.
I think there's also a GT World Championship weekend this weekend. There's definitely something kicking around. 19th, 20th of May, we've got the prologue, that's this weekend. We're currently in the prologue for 24 Hours of Spa as well, so that's all building up to this weekend as well.
Some of this will be watched after the weekend because there just isn't enough time, and I'm going to have to really try hard to not spoil myself for various things. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, there is a lot to get through. I think there's also, I don't think there's a BTCC round this weekend, but I could be wrong. Let's check.
It's perfect meme territory for the baby being held out of the water, but it'll be multiple skeletons below being ignored completely, unfortunately, for motorsport. More of an advertisement for everyone to have a meeting once a year and sort all their calendars out together so we don't have to be in this mess constantly.
Yeah, we have got rounds 7, 8 and 9 at Snetterton in the BTCC this weekend. I think there's definitely something on at Donington as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something on at Brands. There's definitely classic racing on the horizon as well.
And that's just the stuff going on in Britain, never mind internationally.
Yeah, so, that doesn't even get close to FRECA or regional series or anything like that. So it's a busy weekend, and we're going to talk about pretty much just 2 major series and a couple of their smaller ones. We'll start with the first of those major series, and as we've already alluded to, we're well into Indy 500 territory, with Alex Palou bagging his second 500 pole position. He pipped Alexander Rossi to the top of the pack in qualifying, with Rossi later crashing in the subsequent practice session. He aims to still make the race start, following surgery to repair minor injuries to a finger on his left hand and his right ankle. I don't know if you saw the great shot of him at like a meet and greet thing that may or may not have been in
with his leg up on a stool with way too much cast on for me to be happy about seeing that this far out from Sunday's race. It's, as was pointed out to me earlier in the week, I believe the 1997 or 1998 winner of the Indy 500 was victorious with a broken back. So it's doable.
Yeah, you can win this race with a broken back, which isn't.
I don't know how much we'd recommend it.
Yeah, that's not to besmirch the achievements of those who have won it with unbroken backs. But yeah, I mean,
please do attempt all of your Indy 500s in full health.
Yes, yeah. Please do not, for our sakes, break your back to attempt the Indy 500.
We're not liable for your decisions regarding this matter.
Yeah, other races as yet to be decided, but certainly for the Indy 500, our position is please do not injure yourself in the attempts.
Don't try this at home.
Yeah, I think that covers everything. Speaking of something that someone is trying but not at home, Catherine Legg will be starting 26th on Sunday at the Indy 500, directly behind Joseph Newgarden. So not a bad qualifying position when you consider the field she's in. It was very jumbled this year, and she is then looking
between Newgarden and Schumacher. It's a very odd row of cars to be in. It's good fun.
There's a lot of people, I'd say, out of position, possibly, but we'll see how it shakes out. But anyway, she's starting there. She'll be starting the Indy 500. She'll be looking to complete it before immediately hopping in a helicopter and a plane and a helicopter to go and tackle the Coca-Cola 600 in a bid to be, I think, the first woman to ever attempt the double. So, yeah, I think, is it Tony Stewart remains the only person to have ever actually completed the double? And
yes,
there's been a lot of people try it.
6th place, but she's only the 6th person in history to attempt it. So, and like you say, the first woman, and I love that, to be honest. It's just a very much sod it, why not, let's go for it sort of attitude. And, I was saying this the other day, doesn't really matter what happens. There's a story here. So
Yeah.
she can't really go wrong in any way, shape, or form. It's going, oh, what are you comparing me to the other 5 people in all of history that have tried this? I don't think you can really complain too much one way or the other. So it's only good stuff that can happen here.
Yeah, it's going to make for a very interesting story and certainly a very interesting achievement, regardless of what happens. I mean, we've seen other drivers more recently attempt it as well, so it's not an easy one to go for. But it's looking like it's going to be a very good weekend. Obviously, there's a few other stories sort of leading into the Indy 500 weekend. We were talking again before we went on air that the Weenie 500 returns. These are the Oscar Mayer Wienermobiles that will again be racing around the Brickyard ahead of the 110th running of the 500. And the commander in beef will be Andy Richter, the American comedian. He's a pretty funny guy, and I think he's gonna serve this event with the decorum that I think it requests.
Between that, the seriousness with which Will Buxton and co. take their actual pre-race and commentary and post-race analysis of the event, and then the singing of the Weenie song prior to the race itself, it is one of sport's most underrated and hopefully long-standing traditions to come in all of motorsport that I hope I can attend one day.
It's up there with tackling the Nürburgring 24 hours. It puts the Weenie 500 is up there with the Dacia Logan that was contesting this year's Nürburgring 24.
It also makes me think that, America is celebrating 250 years of its existence this year, and this just screams America in a way that a lot of, other things won't do in quite the same way. It just feels like you wouldn't have this in another country. It wouldn't work quite as well.
I'm just tackling some slightly baffling maths. So, yeah, America, 1776 to present, 250 years, correct? 110 runnings.
That's what I'm going off with all of that.
Yeah, but 110 runnings of the Indy 500. So very nearly for half of America's lifespan, there has been the Indy 500.
There has been IndyCar. Yes.
Yeah, what a fantastic fact.
And now 2 of those years are blessed by the Weenie 500.
What a brilliant time to be alive, honestly. Meanwhile, I already alluded to it. The Nürburgring 24 hours went off the last weekend as well. Fantastic race, always a fascinating one to sort of tune into because it is crackers, really, and made more so by the fact that a Dacia Logan competed in it once again and finished the race. It retired briefly with a broken hub on the front end, lost a wheel, was recovered, brought back to its garages, repaired, and sent back out. And this, for me, is an empirical victory for Romanian engineering, and I stand by that as a statement. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, failed to finish, broke a drive shaft, did not have the replacement parts. But who did? The guys with the Dacia. That's the important thing here.
And if I saw the story correctly, one of my motorsport counterparts in Mr. Glock got in a bit of trouble at the Nürburgring as well, which was great fun to look at in the comment section in particular, mainly just, so he can drive slowly.
Yeah.
Or he can drive quickly, rather.
Yeah, he can do quickly. I think to the point that he might have had his license.
He has to do
He
has to do reorientation at the circuit, which is quite amusing news. Yeah, considering what he was saying about prior to the weekend regarding rookies and driving too slowly or not driving quick enough, and then I'll show them how quick it is.
Yeah, just a really interesting about turn for him in circumstances, and maybe the heavy hand of fate always arrives in earnest of smacking in the face. Anyway, moving back to Formula One, obviously we're heading into the Canadian Grand Prix weekend, and 2 things to note. One, we have Formula One Academy returning to Canada. It's been there before and provided some interesting racing last year when it crammed 3 races into one weekend because it had to shuffle the rain-postponed Miami second race to Canada last year. This year, just the 2 rounds for them.
But no, 3 races again because Saudi Arabia didn't happen. So we're having 3 races in Canada again. And we're going to do a 3rd race in Texas as making up for the lack of a round that we got in Saudi.
Really?
Yep. So we've got 2 F1, we've got a Grand Prix, a sprint, 2 F2 races and 3 F1 Academy races, and then whatever else you've got to support F1 this weekend, which I assume would be Mazda racing or Porsches. Tradition. So we got everything going on.
Oh my days! Yeah, you are incredibly correct. Damn. Okay, that's funky. So yeah,
I'm looking forward to next year's cancellation of something early on in the season to provide F1 Academy with yet again 3 races in Canada, as will now be tradition.
Yeah, Valtteri Bottas traditions meme. Yeah, so they'll have free practice on the Friday, 9 till 9:40, qualifying on Friday at 6 till 6:30. I believe these are all UK based times. Oh no, these are all based on the times at the track. So early starts and late finishes for the F1 Academy girls on the Friday. Saturday, they have their opening race at 9:45 until 10:15. Then again on Saturday, they have a reverse grid race at 6:05, running until 6:35. And then on Sunday, 10:45 till 11:15, their feature race. So yeah, that's a lot to get through for them in a weekend. That's going to be some intensive racing for them, and of course they are joined by Formula 2, who will also be squeezing the standard melee of their weekends of a practice, qualifying, a sprint race and a feature race into that whole thing too.
And we find out, can Alex Dunn do yet again a 3rd place in the sprint and then just absolutely board it up in a feature race and just either drive into his teammate or the wall? We will find out.
Maybe he can. I think there is a level of consistency that we can expect from him that means he could achieve
Not the consistency you necessarily want as a team or a driver, but it is consistency nonetheless.
Yeah, we just need to refocus the consistency. And of course, all of that slots in around Formula One, which brings with it some new technical regulations.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. They had some for Miami. When we spoke about it coming into Miami, I did say that there was going to be some sort of further ones refocusing on the engine that were coming in, and these have been announced as the ADUO or ADUO, additional development and upgrade opportunities. It's not quite adieu. It's not the right letter.
It sounds better than whatever else we can try and work with it. I don't know what we would. ADUO doesn't roll off the tongue quite as nicely.
No, but adieu would be more akin to the fact that MBS.
The FIA are doing this. They're French. It kind of works. Let's go with it.
Adieu is more what MBS wants to say to this 50-50 split in the powertrains, but again, we'll get to that in a few paragraphs' time. ADUO, the additional developments and upgrade opportunities. This focuses on the ICE elements of the powertrain, specifically if your engine is 2% or more behind the best performing engine on the grid. If you're 2 to 4% behind, you get 1 additional upgrade. If you're over 4% adrift, you get 2 additional upgrades in the current season or a year following on from when that upgrade is decided. It's based off of 3 monitoring periods, rounds 1 through 5, 6 through 11, and 12 through 18, updated for the new calendar and stopping post-Mexico, possibly to avoid tripping over itself a second time should we reinstate Bahrain and Saudi and then having to readjust it all once more. There is also currently rumour going around that we might not have a Qatar Grand Prix, so potentially it's a good thing they've stopped those sort of monitoring periods as early as Mexico, because we could go back to the point where seasons just ended either at Las Vegas or Brazil.
Oh yeah, I was going to say Qatar is one thing. I'm still sort of impressed they're just ploughing ahead and going, Abu Dhabi definitely gonna do that one. And going, you are aware of where that is, right? Just looking at, I wouldn't mind Vegas or Brazil or one of those ones going for it for a finale to really throw it back to yesteryear of many a year gone by. But I just love the fact that you go, Qatar, I don't know about that, but Abu Dhabi, oh yeah, we're good. I think it'll be sorted by then.
They'll have installed an iron dome over Yas Marina. It'll be fine. Anyway, where did I get to? Yes. If you're consistently down over those periods, then from Brazil inclusive, from what I can interpret from the Formula 1 and FIA, you will get the scope to enjoy some additional upgrades. There are rules on when the upgrades can be brought in. The cost cap is also being adjusted for those who earn the upgrades, so you're not essentially hindered by going, oh, well, we get to use these upgrades, we can't afford to, though. They have factored that in, which is quite considerate of them. This follows Mohammed Ben Salam saying that he wants to take the series back to naturally aspirated screamers with a little bit of a boost and sustainable fuels. Upgrade-wise, McLaren have a broad raft of tweaks coming that'll transform the car this weekend. Mercedes haven't said if they will be bringing any this weekend, but given the few they had in Miami, it's likely there are more to come, given that Canada is a more typical location for updates and upgrades. Ferrari have some penciled in, and Cadillac have also confirmed that they've got a number of adjustments coming to their car. So it's all systems go in the workshops and engineering houses of Formula One as teams try and develop their way out of the tricky situation that the FIA has shoved them into.
Yeah, which is always quite an interesting thing because I was having this talk the other day about the technicalities of Formula One and how, you have such a massive regulation change from one year to the next, and you essentially still find yourself in more or less the same situation you were in terms of who's at the top, who's in the middle, and who's at the back. With a few surprises here and there, but ultimately nothing too shocking. And the fact that we've been able to achieve that multiple times over numerous decades now, it's impressive in sort of the wrong way, and makes you think that you've been this drastic and you've boxed everyone into a corner, given them a certain creative latitude to solve their way out of it, and now you're in a situation where you have to help them. And you go, I'm not entirely sure what we've achieved here. It's provided interesting Grand Prix so far. Obviously, a lot of split opinions on what constitutes good and bad and indifferent. But it's just interesting how, you go for this, as has been labelled the biggest regulation change in many a year, and you manage to box yourself in quite so spectacularly. And if you're Aston Martin, you're going, how on earth did this happen? So yeah, how this all pans out in the long term, no idea. But it's interesting to watch from the sidelines. It feels very much like you're sitting on a porch watching the neighbours across the road, but they're at a fair enough distance. But you can just kind of tell that something's going on and it's not going to plan. And so you're just sitting there sipping your beverage of choice, going, "Damn interesting. No idea where this is going, but I'm intrigued, and I'll stay here until this is resolved in one way or the other."
Yeah, it does feel like eventually we'll have to stop putting sticking plasters on this as a problem. I think that's ultimately that there is only so many times that you can go, oh, we'll let you do some additional upgrades if you're really off the pace. Oh, well, we'll look at doing this. Oh, well, we'll do this to acquiesce to your demands. And you're sort of thinking, who's running this show? And Formula One, through even its worst times under Bernie Ecclestone, potentially, never had this sort of like, you never quarrelled with the leadership. You simply obliged and engineered your way out of it. Now it seems to have gone the other way, where you just sort of kick up a fuss and moan about it until eventually the leadership sort of bends the knee, and it sort of doesn't feel.
I would sort of respect the FIA if a lot of the officials came out with just T-shirts with Christian Horner's face on it with a quote from Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
If you don't like it,
Pick the car.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to go for the full quote. I think it'd be good fun, but I don't think the FIA might go for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting time. You look at Formula E; they seem to have the electrical side of things down pretty well. Gen 4 looks quite interesting from what a lot of the drivers and ex-drivers of other sports seem to say. Extreme H is trundling along nicely in terms of development packages for its World Cup in October, and Indycar's dealing with sustainable fuel. And you go, it's one supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsport of engineering magnificence and all that sort of thing. And it feels a little bit like a misfire, and you have not seen it quite in so big a way. And it's not delivering bad racing per se. It's just really muddied the waters in a way that has left everyone a bit conflicted over what they think exactly, because it's, no one, you've just got so many things you could focus on, and collectively you could argue one way or the other for them. It really depends. And I think that the divide has just not quite been this divisive for quite a while, because there's just so much going on.
I think also it's the first time in a while we've had this sort of complete revelation of both engine and sort of aerodynamics. And also, I think as a sport, as an audience, we're possibly getting more insular as well. We live in an echo chamber of sort of constantly being fueled by what other people are saying about it. If you think back to 2022, when we had the new aerodynamic regulations come in, the dawn of the ground effect cars, while the engines are very much the same, the 1.6 turbocharged engines. Think about that opening round at Bahrain when it was Charles Leclerc versus Max Verstappen, and we had that great ding-dong sort of forwards, backwards,
opening 4 or 5 races was spectacular. Yeah. It was just after that.
Yeah, it was after that it nosedived a little bit when Max Verstappen sort of figured out what he was doing and ran away with things. But we didn't criticise it then for seemingly having fake racing or sort of for being backwards, forwards, constant sort of swapping of places. Why?
This is why I don't
Why have we
understand
started
the
doing that
argument
now?
this time around for what is real overtaking and what isn't, because we had DRS for the last however many years.
Yeah,
That's not exactly natural either. It's the same way that IndyCar, yeah, you can race and overtake without any aids, but you've got push to pass if you want it. It's the option for it's there. So it's kind of like, where do you draw the line? But then you look at some of the series, you look at F1 Academy, you like to repeat this point whenever we talk about it, is that they need to do something with those cars, because a lot of the time they just kind of play a game of snake around the circuit, and they don't really get much of a chance past that first lap to overtake. But then you look at something like French F4 or Italian F4, just the sheer scope of the grid, there's so many cars going on that there is guaranteed action throughout. So it really is interesting to see where it works, where it doesn't, what causes it, what doesn't, and what constitutes good racing, where assistance is acceptable, where it isn't. Formula E, they invented a whole pit stop just to give people more energy so that they could go after stuff and go, is that not manufactured as well? So it's very messy everywhere at the moment, it feels like, and no one can agree on anything even more than usual.
And also, I think some drivers have forgotten, possibly in Formula One, possibly also in Formula E. I was looking at a recent comment from Dan Ticktum, I know, take it with a pinch of salt, but where he said that sort of a lot of things also come down to sort of strategy and what the team on the pit wall is doing. But that's been motor racing since certainly the 60s. When you had to
every race arguably has had some form of strategy in it. That's just called going racing.
Yeah, that's a part of it.
You're not good at it. That's more of a you problem than it is anyone else. This is the guy that started on pole for 2 races and didn't get on the podium for either race at the weekend. So
you can see why he might
be quite a large pinch of salt.
Yeah, but again, this is the thing of what does and doesn't count as racing. Where do we define it? And the other interesting quote I read recently was one from, I think it was Juan Pablo Montoya, when they said, "Oh, bring back the screaming sort of naturally aspirated V10s, V12s, and everything." And he was like, "Yeah, but the racing in that period was terrible. Like, you'd get a couple of overtakes in a race, that was about it." And I was like, actually, yeah, if you go back and watch it, the highlights footage is just engine noise. And maybe Schumacher, if he hasn't qualified well, screaming past everyone on fresh tyres.
Well, it's a little bit like Prost and Senna in '88, right? You've got these awesome turbocharged, screaming engines, but unless it's the Monza race that year, you're not doing anything much to get in the way of them. You're kind of hoping against hope that something's going to happen to them. And even when it did, the other one was there. It's that old thing of nostalgia goggles a little bit, isn't it? The racing we have fond memories of, because Ferrari was great, so it must have been good. But then you remember how dominant they were there for, and you go, the engines, the sound was there, and I'm like, I'm with you on that. But just because that one element was excellent doesn't mean everything else was. You look at 2014, you think it was a great season in a lot of ways, but it was only really between 2 cars the entire time. And I think I said to you, I've certainly said it to a few other people recently, IndyCar, you have this whole thing of the championship looks, I don't want to say it's already wrapped up because anything can happen, but it's a series where even where that's sort of settled, anyone can still win a race. Formula E definitely has that ability, just chaos all the time. Formula One, it's probably going to be between the top 4 if we're being generous already, but you're still looking at that going, if it's not one of the Mercedes, I don't know how it's not one of them winning every race this year with the way this is going at the moment. And that's where all this feeds into, and you just go, there are solutions for this, but maybe you need to just think outside the box a bit more.
And at a time
and don't just blame stuff like strategy.
Yeah, and at a time when access to watching various forms of motor racing is so readily available, sort of either going to it in person,
you can dip in and out.
And going to it in person, watching it online, watching the highlights reels online, you can, like you said, dip in and out. And BTCC, I think, has sort of really capitalized on that in being sort of so readily accessible and having brilliant racing as well. It's close, it's frenetic. We've got a new team joined this year. We've got some interesting drivers in it. It's one of those series that very quickly becomes captivating, but also doesn't become dull because the racing is so compressed and energetic and fiery, and also it's dirt cheap to attend.
It's kind of what got me into supercars, really, because again, I'm not flying over to Australia sadly every 5 minutes to watch a race. They really upped their package in terms of, if you can't watch it live because we realise we're in Australia, here's a short highlights package, but here's an extended highlights package, and the racing is always excellent. They do multiple races per weekend. It really does feel like it's anyone's game a lot of the time, and it's always brilliant racing.
Okay, so here we go. This is the picked a random race weekend at BTCC. For its accessibility, this is Oulton Park, relatively easy to get to by road. You've got 3 major races there across the weekend. On the 22nd through 23rd of August, so peak school holidays here in the UK. What do you think a adult weekend ticket is? So that gives you access on the Saturday.
So I feel like I'm going into sort of European Le Mans and World Endurance Championship territory for prices here. So first, that'll be what, 3 days, you say?
2 days of racing, 2 days, 3 races, plus you get a bunch of feeder series attached to that as well. I could probably check what other bits and pieces you get alongside it, but I think you get like British F4 and a few other bits.
I know what I would be willing to pay compared to how low I think they would go. I'll be wrong regardless. So 100 quid, more or less.
Okay, so you also get Porsche Carrera Cup GB, British F4, the Mini Challenge.
It just makes me think it's more expensive, and that's a red herring, and it's going to be cheaper. So I feel like what, 70, 60?
Full weekend admission will cost you £49.
Yeah, you're getting what, 20 minutes of an FP1 session for that, if you're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 1 month. That's just over 1 month's worth of Sky Sports in the UK for comparison. A gate ticket will cost you 60 quid, so buy in advance and save yourself, 11
But even then, that's still so much cheaper than the majority of things that you could go to.
For 5 grids, and out of the top flights of them, you've still got 3 races in there, plus practice and qualifying sessions, and also the access you get. I'm looking sort of back at what you get included in that. There's a DJ on the Friday night, live bands on the Saturday, free parking, trade stands, a free pit walk and autograph session. So you can, if you really love the series, you can walk down the pit on Sunday on main race day, get autographs from the drivers, photographs. You're paying squillions to do that in Formula One to get essentially pit lane access, but for 60 quid for an adult, and it's less if you're buying for a kid.
I get why F1 gets away with it more, because it is obviously a vastly different series and it's a whole other scale. But at the same time, the gulf of accessibility of that kind, I'm not saying it should be level, but it should be closer. And if you're not offering necessarily the best on-track stories, let's say, then at least off-track you should be nailing it. And I feel like that's something where either I'm the wrong audience for a lot of what they're doing, which is very possible. I'm aware that I'm a niche category, but also I feel like you'd be aware of certain things and you'd hear about it. If it's big enough, if it's good enough, you hear about it. You definitely hear about it when it's bad. You think back to Austria a few years ago, some of the complaints that the fans had about some of the stuff going on there, you hear about it. So when it's good, you hear about it. And I don't know. Yeah.
So, I mean, a weekend out at British Touring Car Championship for a family of 4, if you've got 2 people over the age of 16, 2 children under 13, kids under 13 go free, and teenagers 13 through 15, it's only £30 if you book in advance for them. It's reasonable. You cannot...
You're being paid by the BTCC, by the way. Is this an advertisement?
This is. I don't need to announce this as Spawn and Con. I genuinely believe it's one of the best racing series you could get into right now if you want to actually go and watch live racing. That's a personal belief, and I'll stand by it. But anyway,
use discount code.
If you quote Undercut Podcast when you get to the basket, that takes another 10% off. Please don't try that. I don't think that's actually... It won't work.
Although if it does work, write to us. Let us know.
Let us know. I did not know we'd agreed to this with BTCC. Anyway, away from that and back to Canada. Fun fact leading into the weekend, Thiemo.
Yes, as we are here for Canada, we should probably get back onto the main topic. And I just thought, Canada, it's a great circuit. We've been racing it for many, many years now. And, it's not always been a classic race, but I think most of the time we've had more interesting races than dull races. You look at 2023 as the perfect example of that. It was a season where you'd be forgetting a lot of what happened outside of Singapore, but even the Canadian Grand Prix on that occasion gave us one of the best podium lineups in all of history, just in terms of the accolades that the 4 individuals had on that podium. And between 1978 and 2014, we've seen 6 drivers take their maiden win rather, in Montreal. My question for you is, who are those 6 drivers, first and foremost?
that have taken their maiden
win in Canada. 3 should be easy, possibly 4. Let's see if you get all 6.
Between 1978 and 2014. Okay. Robert Kubica?
Number 1.
Lewis Hamilton? Was his a...
Number 2. The years are giveaways for you here.
2014, so Nico Rosberg?
No.
No? Bottas?
No.
78, Gilles Villeneuve?
Weird that you get him correct before 2014, but yes.
Got
3 to go. 1 is very obvious.
2014.
You'll kick yourself.
I probably will.
Do you want me to tell you the other 3?
No, Alan Jones.
No.
He's usually a go-to answer for any mate. Since formerly of this podcast. Nigel Mansell.
Nope.
Jean Alesi.
Again, weird that you get Jean Alesi correct before you get 2014, but there we go. So that's 4 out of the 6. You got 2 more. 1 obvious, 1 less so.
Daniel Ricciardo.
There we go. Got there eventually.
So that just leaves you the more obscure one. I was thinking Danny Rick, but I was like, I certainly must have won before 2014.
He did not. He was only a little baby before then.
Yeah. First win in Formula One. Canada comes quite early in the season typically, so I might also go for Sebastian Vettel.
No. You know when that was, and it wasn't Canada.
No, yeah, you're very right there. I do know when that was. That was Monza, wasn't it, with Toro Rosso? Silly mistake from me there. 2000, yeah.
It's between Gilles Villeneuve and Jean Alesi, time-wise.
Ooh.
Which I think shows you why it's a little trickier.
Between Gilles... Nelson Piquet.
No.
Does prevent me just simply listing Formula One drivers. Do you want to just give me the answer?
Thierry Boustin.
Thierry Boustin was with Renault, I think, as well at that point, wouldn't it have been?
I think so, yes. I didn't make note of the team, but that sounds about right. Those are the 6 anyway that we had as maiden wins, and we've got 9 drivers on the grid this season without a race win to their names yet. So will we see any of those 9? The 9 being Behrman, Lawson, Colapinto, Lindblad, Hadjar, Bortoleto, Albon, Hulkenberg, and Stroll. Will we see any of them, do you think, take their first F1 victory this weekend? Are we in for an absolute barnstormer?
I wouldn't be surprised. No, Boutsen got his first win at the Canadian Grand Prix with Williams, of all people, which was interesting. There we go.
Does that lend credence to Albon, perhaps, in your choice there? He had what was supposedly voted as the best overtake of the last 5 years, with his double overtake in, 25, 24?
Yeah,
going down into the final chicane before the Wall of Champions. I'm not convinced that was the best one. It was very nice, but it was certainly good. I think Lindblad, Colapinto, and Stroll and Bortoleto are ambitious for getting their first Grand Prix this weekend, but I think Ben and Lawson somehow, I wouldn't be surprised if they scrapped their way into it. Hadjar, you never know. It would be quite a deafening team radio if he pulled that off, and Hulkenberg and Albon, they've got the experience.
Yeah. I
also
think
just be very Hulkenberg to somehow get his first win and first podium in back-to-back years after almost so long. Like multiple decades of trying.
Behrman, I could see it happening. He's a driver that's always very good at putting himself where he needs to be to capitalise on changing conditions and changing circumstance on the track. So I think he would be a shoo-in in this field of drivers to do such a thing. Lawson, I don't think I can see...
if we get a crazy race, that's all I'm thinking there. He's crazy enough to just elbows out enough and go, no, I want this. I don't care who you are.
Lawson would score an absolutely incredible maiden podium in Formula One with both side pods missing or something ridiculous. I think that's the way I see it happening, and I can see Canada being the place that he might do it. Colapinto, no. Lindblad, No,
It's too
not this
soon.
weekend. Hadjar could do it if the Red Bull's got a few upgrades coming to it, I think, this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just sort of like locks in and knows that really got to do
Mm.
something, but doesn't overdrive the car for it. I think Canada's a good circuit because the walls are so close so much of the time. You know that you cannot overdrive the car, and it sort of impinges on your sort of over pushing, which I think Hadjar sometimes falls foul of, and therefore he'll find that right balance and rein it in nicely. Bortoletto, I don't think the Audi's there this season, so that also wipes out Hulkenberg. Stroll, almost certainly not. Albon, I could see him doing it, yeah. I've actually predicted something quite spicy for the Williams later on, so the Albon
So
one.
now that we've overly sold the Canadian Grand Prix for this weekend, we'll get into the predictions, which for the most part will be a lot tamer, I imagine.
Yeah, we'll start with your pole position prediction, please, Thiemo.
Kimi Antonelli. I'm going to have to be sensible, unfortunately, here. I think he did well here last year. He got his first podium in Formula One. He kept a cool head, and he is on the charge at the moment. We were questioning as we headed into Miami if he could keep the momentum from China and Japan. Yes, was the short answer. And so if he can keep the momentum going after that big a gap between races, this shouldn't be much trouble. At least to begin the weekend with. It is a sprint weekend after all, and calamities can happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of elbows out action across the weekend. I remember where I was when Kimi Antonelli won, because it was also obviously the race where Norris and Piastri came together, and I was in a small restaurant in Albania watching it on the telly in the corner of the room with a bunch of Albanian dads and Georgia. We'd had a lovely fish dinner, and they were just bringing around some free liquor, and then I remember one of the crash happening, and one of the Albanian guys just going, "Oh," in the sort of the international gesture of "What the hell have you done that for, you idiot?"
There's a language that exists.
Yeah. But for me, pole position, I think this weekend will go to Charles Leclerc. I think that it's a circuit that enjoys a good amount of power, but isn't power limiting, or doesn't require you to have the most powerful car per se. I think that's where the balance of the Ferrari might come through to the fore a little bit more and give Charles the chance to show what he's capable of. And again, he is an incredibly quick driver over one lap. I won't say he's a qualifying specialist, I don't want to pigeonhole him as such, but he can churn out a very good qualifying lap when the time comes.
He does have that unfortunate record of Verstappen has converted more Leclerc poles to victory than Leclerc has, which shows he does have that one lap pace if he is lacking something in the Grand Prix. But I do think with the regulations that we've got this year, that final chicane will be very interesting to watch, and there will be a lot of drivers taking to the wide version of that chicane instead, depending on what happens there. That could be quite fun.
We'll add in a bonus prediction to this in a second to do with the Wall of Champions, but we'll get past our podium first.
7.
Yeah, 7. Okay, I'll write that down.
Yeah, podium, just because of the history attached to it, and it also separates the men from the boys a little bit. And as much as Antonelli's been impressing, it would be good for him and for his journey of the season to not have a blockbuster weekend and just to bring him back to earth a little bit. So I'm going to say Lewis, Max, and George are on the podium in that order. If we get a wet race or mixed conditions, all three have proven that they can be in it to win it, especially Hamilton, Verstappen, and Russell. Maybe he's having to fight back from somewhere, but I can still see him being on the podium in a kind of, I needed to grab that win, but wasn't able to sort of way in the way that we saw a lot with the McLaren drivers last year.
Yeah, I can see it possibly coming out as one of those races that sort of has that slightly sort of chaotic mood to it. And yeah, those are the drivers that are often the best at capitalizing on that. You say about it being wet. Have you looked at a forecast for the weekend?
I was reminded of it the other day, I think yesterday even, and it wasn't ideal if you were hoping for clean racing, and clean in any sense of the word. So
yeah,
it could be a very long Sunday.
Friday and Saturday, about 19 degrees Celsius with very low chance of rain. 1% is as high as it gets on the Saturday with the sun burning through the clouds. Sunday, very different story. 17 degrees Celsius feels like 15 with a shade temperature of 14 because we've got a lot of wind rate of cloud coverage and a rain chance of 72% with 2 hours of rain.
One of those days, isn't it?
It's going to be one of those Canadian Grand Prix that lasts for 4.5 hours.
If Jenson Button wins this, I'll be impressed.
Comes back from retirement for a one-off Canadian Grand Prix special. Could you imagine? Meanwhile, my podium prediction is Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Kimi Antonelli.
Sticking with your Leclerc train.
Yeah, I think that he might start to fight back against that. Verstappen's got more wins off of Leclerc poles than Leclerc has. But equally, I don't think there's a lot you can do with the dominance of the Mercedes. It's going to be there whether you like it or not. It's going to be in that top 5. It's going to be in your mirrors. I think
that's if they get to that point of the race, you know.
They might have been wiped out by hard-charging Liam Lawson before this point in time.
I was thinking Weather and Bottas personally, but yours works too.
He's got a lot of cars to go through, though. Remember, because that Cadillac is going to be qualified.
He can do it.
Yeah, he's going.
Turn 1, Turn 2 are all kind of mixed together. We've seen, Massa and Hulkenberg down there before, so it's doable.
He's not even relying on sort of getting a spare with Stroll coming through. He's going for the full strike, I think, if we're going Bottas bowling. But yeah, for me, podium, Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, fastest lap, which, given that we now know it's going to be a bit soggy, can sometimes turn fastest laps on their head.
Which I would love to say was what I was thinking of beforehand, but I was just being ambitious.
Same.
And so I've gone for Ollie Behrman. I think, if it's not raining immediately, it'll be one of those races where you set the fast lap early and someone's just pitted Behrman on lap 2 for shits and giggles, and we're going to go with some soft tyres, see what we can do, and he just sets a blistering lap, and then he's got to pit immediately because it's started raining. We go, damn, didn't work.
Yeah, I've gone for Carlos Sainz. I think the Williams might have a couple of upgrades.
That's a slippery road to go on.
I'm not going to try and do it until he does it. I'm not falling down your pit hole, but I think there's some upgrades coming for that Williams, and I think Carlos is going to possibly get a handle on them a lot quicker than Albon might. And he's performing in a strong way at the moment. He's sort of been really overstretching what that chassis can do, and I think if we get some upgrades, it's going to catapult Sainz up there. And if he's in clean air in a brief dry period where they might get away with bolting on some softs for a few laps, I wouldn't be surprised if Sainz chucks something interesting in there. Meanwhile, wild predictions, because they haven't been wild enough already. Thiemo.
I've gone for 3 of the 5 drivers who haven't scored points yet in 2026 will score at least 1 point each over the weekend.
Ooh, so what's that? That's
both Aston Martins, both Cadillacs, and I think depressingly Hulkenberg.
Is it Hulkenberg or is it Bortoleto?
It's one of the Audis.
It's Hulkenberg. Bortoleto scored 2 points in Australia.
There we go then.
Yeah, damn, son. Yeah, there we go. That is a horrifying statistic to reach. For me, my wild prediction is double Williams in the top 8.
Is this across the weekend or specifically the Grand Prix?
Specifically,
you're not going to say specifically the sprint because that'd be ambitious.
Yeah, the Grand Prix.
Right then. Now, if they get a top 8 in the sprint, it's going to be very funny.
I've been shafted with this before because we did it with Colapinto's. I should have just left it as 4th points and said top 8 in Miami. But anyway,
never have I wanted them to do well in the sprint this much before.
You'll be watching the sprint with eager anticipation for once.
It's traveling, yeah.
So, Wall of Champions, a special Canada-only predictions round. You're going for 7 drivers officially tap.
This is the thing. Are we, again, Grand Prix specific or across the weekend? And by that, I mean just the sprint and the Grand Prix, because I feel like qualifying and practice is asking for too much trouble.
Just across the sprint and the Grand Prix, I think, because that's when we're going to be actively watching the sessions and it'll be mentioned. I think if someone does it in... Do you want to include qualifyings in there as well? Because drivers are really going to be pushing at that point.
They will, but then I don't know if I'm putting my number up or not. That's the thing, because 7 is still a big number. Out of 22, it's nearly 50% of the drivers will be smacking it.
I'm not saying they smack it and sort of like pull a wheel off. I'm just saying there's a little tap. There's like it scuffs the wheel trim.
Okay, put it like this: it's got to do damage to the car. If we're counting it for the numbers that we put in here, it's got to have, it's because if you kiss it and get away with it, that's fine, But if you're tapping it and your wheel kind of comes off, or you smack the back end into it instead, or you just get nerfed out of the way into the wall, it still counts as you. That's a lot of damage. I'll stick with 7. 7's still a lot.
So we're going
up to you if you want to go liar or hole.
So we're ruling this as damage to the car by driver error in qualifying, sprint, or Grand Prix.
I was going to go for sprint or Grand Prix.
I want to put qualifying in there.
All right.
Because again, if on one lap pace.
Well, what number are you going with then? Because you kind of got to go higher now than yourself at.
No, I reckon they're going to be quite clean. I'm going for 4. Because also what that does do is throw it the other way. That gives me a scope for a lot more drivers to get it wrong, and we'll do points for point for closest in the prediction game. How does that sound?
Why not? I won my title last year. I'm just having shits and giggles this year. As my points tally for the year already proves by it being, I think, still 0. So I don't have many. I know that much.
No, you're on 1.
Hey.
The guest is on 3 and I'm on 4.
Imagine I could claw it all back this weekend.
You very much could, especially now we've chucked in that bonus point for the Wall of Champions, because, of course, that is a famous feature at the Canadian Grand Prix, which we have just previewed, which is a really arse about tit way of saying that. Anyway, we'll be back soon to review the Canadian Grand Prix. In the meantime, I would say, Thiemo, where can you be found? But given the amount of racing action we've been through that's coming up this weekend, the only place you'll be found is sat in front of a large myriad of screens, like a panopticon, just watching cars going round and round.
One day I hope for that. It would be quite nice to you've got to experience that at least once, I think, in all its motorsport glory. But if you do want even more from me, then on the Cubs Indycar for the Indy 500 qualifying review that is out now. If you want a couple of interviews, I've got written interviews over on Instagram with Alexander Rossi and Alex Cyborg, and Paddock Influence and It's Race Week for everything else. Some good stuff there, both for Formula One, F1 Academy, Rally Portugal, and IndyCar.
That's a lot of stuff to go through. In the meantime, if you want more from me, you can find me on the internet as @JesseOnCars on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can find me writing for Classic Car Weekly. We've got a new issue out this week. I can't remember what's in it. Then there's my report from Retro Rides at Goodwood. You should go and read that. And obviously there'll be a new issue out next week as well, because we're a weekly paper. And we also have a podcast that we do try and remember to do from time to time. So go and look at that. And I'm also very busy this weekend because I'm hosting a classic car show at Transport Museum Withall on the 23rd, so Saturday between 9 a.m. and 12 midday. So if you're in the Midlands...
PM would have been ambitious.
Yeah, right up until midnight. If you're in the Midlands area on the morning of the 23rd, pop in, say hi. If you're bringing a classic car along, it's free entry. The cafe's open for coffee and a bacon roll. I'm hoping a lot of people are going to turn up, otherwise I'm going to look like an idiot. Anyway, that's all we've got for the time being. We'll see you again very soon to review the Canadian Grand Prix.